Hey everyone, it's Jade from Boho Bookworm. How are you all doing? It is time for the mid-year freakout tag. Already. Jesus. Let's just dive right on into the questions. Question 1 is, what is the best book that you have read this year so far? Now, I recently just did a video of the best books of 2021 so far. There's, I think, 5 books there that I absolutely loved. They were in no particular order. So I kind of thought that I'd gotten away with not having to answer that question, but then wham, first question here. It's so hard to choose, but I did manage to finally make a decision, and it went to People Like Her by Ellery Lloyd. I've raved about this book enough already, so I'll keep this very short and sweet. This is a book about this woman called Emmy. She's this famous Instagram mum. She's loved by millions, but there's someone out there who is watching her and basically hunting her. They despise her and want her to suffer. So it's the whole kind of crux of the story is that you never really know who's watching you on the other end of the screen, and how dangerous and toxic the world of social media can be. So I loved it. I thought that the writing was just fantastic. It's Ellery Lloyd is a pseudonym for a husband and wife writing duo, and I cannot wait to see what else they come out with next. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read this year so far. So I don't really read a lot of sequels. I'm more of a standalone reader. However, I started A Game of Thrones at the beginning of the year. I finished up Never Never, the 3-book series by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. And then I read the 3rd installment of the Joe Goldberg series, You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes. And yeah, this is definitely the best sequel that I have read this year so far. The Never series just sucked. Colleen Hoover herself rated these books 1 star on Goodreads, so that's how brutal they are. Obviously, Game of Thrones, I loved it, but it's the first book, so sadly that cannot take this slot. So yeah, following more of Joe Goldberg's world is always fun. He's just so fucked up, and I adore him. This book is weird because he's a bit more bitter and a lot more annoying in this book than the first 2 books. He seemed a lot more arrogant and poncy, but you know what, it's Joe Goldberg. I'm gonna be here for this series until the very end. Question number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet, but you really want to, and that has to go to Hostage by Claire Mackintosh. I love her books so much. This one sounds horrifying and petrifying. I'm already a nervous flyer, but there's one thing about this book that I usually don't like in a book, and that is that the whole story takes place within 20 hours. And the setting is on an aeroplane that is travelling from London to Sydney. So we follow this flight attendant, and it's clear that she's got some issues of her own. She's got a 5-year-old daughter that she's worrying about. Her marriage is falling apart or something, but she's trying to forget about that and just deal with being a flight attendant for the day. And when the plane takes off, she receives this anonymous note from one of the passengers. It says something about this anonymous person on board this flight that is now in the air, and it's impossible to get off, is hellbent on making sure that this plane does not reach its destination. And basically this person knows something about this flight attendant and is going to make her choose to save hundreds of people on board, or one person in particular, the person that matters the most. That's a very interesting premise, and I think I'm going to get very anxious reading this book, but I'm ready for it. You can't go wrong with Claire Mackintosh. Then we have the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and this book actually got released today as I'm filming this. It's the 24th of June. John Marr's new book, The Vacation, has just come out. I bloody love John Marr's. I have devoured almost all of his books now, fast becoming an auto-buy author for me. So the interesting thing about the premise of The Vacation is it sounds very different to his previous books, but he's always full of surprises. The Vacation, most of his books are set in and around where I live, Milton Keynes, Leighton Buzzard, all in England. But this book, however, is set in Venice Beach, LA, and there's 8 guests that are in this beach hostel type place, and they're all running from something, and they all have a secret that they would kill to keep. So I don't know, mainly I'm interested to see how John Marrs does this, because usually in his books he creates his own world basically, and it's really interesting. he always kind of puts things that happened in other books that are all standalone books into his future books. So they're like referenced, and sometimes it could give like minor spoilers for certain things. So it's kind of cool to read his books from start to finish, but you don't actually have to. But yeah, I because it's 8 guests at a beach resorty place in LA, maybe they're all from the London area, and they're going to, that's how it's all going to get combined in with the stories from his previous books. I don't really know, but I'm very, very excited for it. It is not available on Audible yet, so it might have to be a book that I'm going to physically have to purchase a copy of, which isn't a bad thing because I've only ever listened to his books on Audible. I've never read a paperback one of his books, and I really want to actually. However, I am trying to save money for a new car and a better life in general. The next question is, what was your biggest disappointment? Nearing the beginning of the year, I read The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, and what an absolute pile of crap this book was. It's this self-help book that was also trying to wangle its way into the fiction genre by giving us this list of really bland and boring, horrible characters. I mean, the dialogue in this book just made me cringe. Basically, this book is trying to tell you that if you get up early and do more things with your day, you're going to be more productive. I mean, that's not a profound message to give someone. We all know that's the case. I just kind of felt like this book was so full of like recycled quotes. And if you just go onto Pinterest and go Google some inspiring quotes, you've basically read this book, but a better version of it. It just felt like this book was a scam, to be honest. The story itself was ludicrous, it wasn't believable, it was boring, and it just kind of spiraled into this irrelevant, insipid pile of shit. Can you tell I really didn't like that book? Moving on to a better question. What was the biggest surprise? So for this one, I have chosen A Game of Thrones because, like, I started watching the series years ago and I fell in love with it, absolutely loved it. And I'd always wanted to read the books. However, it's not my normal genre. Fantasy and magical realism and all that kind of stuff just is not my normal thing at all. It's also ginormous, so I was petrified of it. It took me a bloody long time. I'd also heard things about this, that it was written for kids and that it was just, the books are basically terrible. That's not the case at all. I ended up absolutely loving this book. I'm very sad that it's over and I need to get my hands on book 2. The next question is, who is your new favourite debut author? Ellery Lloyd, people like her, that was absolutely excellent. But I'm trying to offer some more books, so I'm going to speak about one that I'm currently reading now, The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. I'm really loving it. It's just a very simple, feel-good story about, you know, a girl called Tiffy who lives in London. She has to share a flat with this guy that she's never met. Because of his working patterns, they're like passing ships in the night, basically. They've never met. They share the same bed, but they're not in a relationship or anything. It's just an easy kind of very cheap way to live. And she is a book editor. She's very much like a DIY kind of make your own clothes, bargain hunter, quirky, interesting woman, and she's just so full of all this like strangeness that I can't help but smile and laugh every time I pick this book up and get sucked into her world. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far for a debut, and because it's not my normal genre of dark, gritty thrillers, I'm very surprised. So really that could answer the surprise question as well. Indeed. Next question is, who is your new fictional crush? The people I read about in books are usually killers or psychopaths, so I'm not going to say that I have a crush on any of those. However, you know what, like Game of Thrones, Jon Snow, oh, so gorgeous. But although it's really weird because in this book he's a lot younger than he appears in the TV show, and obviously in the TV show he's banging. I also like, okay, so I know that I'm not saying this, that I find him handsome, but Tyrion Lannister as well. I love his chapters. I love his sense of humour. It's wicked, it's fun. And yeah, so for that reason, Jon Snow and Tyrion Lannister. What is your newest favourite character? So for that one, again, Game of Thrones. I'm so excited to read more books in the series. My favourite chapters were Daenerys Targaryen. I just love her so much. The next question is, what is a book that made you cry? And for that, I'm going to choose, I've got a vlog on this where I'm literally sobbing my heart out. Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. Now, that even though I didn't really like this book that much, I mean, there were a lot of things that made me very emotional about it. It's about this woman in her 30s. She's alone, she's single, she's childless. There's a lot of pressure on her. She's trying to be successful. The dementia thing with her father just destroyed my heart. She's basically going through life trying to find her person and online dating, and it was just very close to the bone for me in every aspect. So yeah, I ugly cried with this one. A book that made you happy has to go to The Flat Share, which I'm currently reading now. It's just putting me in a very light, happy mood whenever I pick it up. What is the most beautiful book that you've bought this year? So I had to look, and I haven't really bought many books with beautiful covers. I mean, the cover of You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes is quite beautiful, I think. Just the blend of colours and stuff is really nice. But I do want to give a special mention to The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. Even though I did not personally buy this book, my managers lent it to me. It's a book that I have been meaning to read for years. The reason I've been putting it off is because it's, it's a historical fiction, Holocaust, Nazi Germany, war, 1939 book, which isn't my normal thing, but there's so many amazing reviews on this, and so many people claim that it's their favourite read of their life. So I'm really excited to give it a go. And I have heard that the book is told from Death's point of view or something. So I mean, it sounds fascinating, so I really am very excited to give this a go very soon. And the last question is, what is a book that you need to read before the end of the year? And that one goes to The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace. It's just a 30-day challenge of not drinking, and kind of the book guides you and has you reflecting on how you're feeling within yourself and your body during this time away from alcohol. And I have tried it a number of times, but then the wine gets poured. However, I'm thinking maybe in July, maybe I should do that, because I am trying to save money, and that would actually be a very good idea. I don't have any like big plans in July. I'm on, yeah, I'm gonna do that actually. I'm gonna try Alcohol Experiment in July. Boom diggity. Let me know what your favourite book of the year so far is. I'd love to know, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.